Guys, this time at the Quick Speed Shop, check it out. I'm working on my C10 truck. Oh my god, I ended up cutting the roof off. I got a bunch of other stuff cut off, but now I'm fixing it here. I'm putting new panels in it. So we're doing C10 cab repair. It gets worse before it gets better, but I'm on the upswing, finally. And we can start putting some new metal in this guy and getting it going. I got my C10 cab back from the sandblaster, and it opened up a whole host of problems. The most serious being the back of the cab completely rusted out from the inner side all the way out. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I am going to replace the floor pans where this pitting is here that's been sitting for a week, and it's kind of showed up a little bit, the rust in the pits, so we're going to replace the floor pans anyways. But we got, you can watch the other video, but we got miscellaneous pinholes everywhere up here and stuff. The roof is a disaster. We got pinholes in the drip rail. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was going to maybe cut up the other cab and use that to fix this one. There's also holes over the rear window. And then I told you I probably had to do it. So I went on a road trip. I was just at Hershey a week and a half ago for the AACA show in Pennsylvania, 5 hours away. Well, I had to go back literally less than a week later because I ended up going over there in that box, CJ Pony Parts, in right outside of Hershey. I ended up buying an entire brand new back cab section. That's my solution. I know it's a lot of money, $700, but guess what? It's going to save me a ton of time and labor for some money. So if you look in here, I've got a brand new, there she is, brand new entire back cab section for a C10 truck. All in weld-through primer, ready to go. And one of the things it solves is cab corners. It comes with the cab corners on it. We've got rust along here where it attaches. So the best answer is going to be, take that guy right off there. So that's what we're going to do. It's the best option, not the cheapest option, but it's the best option in the long run. So I also ordered from what do you call it? The place in PA, the other place, Eastwood. I've got some weld-through primer. What I'm going to do is we're going to throw some weld-through primer real fast down here behind where the rocker panels go. I want to start piecing this thing back together. But first we got to do some cutting. It's just metal, don't be scared. But I think I'm going to cut this panel across here below this weld seam for the roof skin. And then we're going to drill the roof skin. We're going to get the roof skin off. I'm going to leave the back of the cab on for now. Get the roof skin off, and that will give me access to repair these panels. See, I got some pinholes here in the posts. We're going to repair that. We're going to repair any damage we got in the roof. There's a couple of pinholes in the roof skin along the edges on the other side. We'll repair those. We'll get the roof and primer. I'm going to use a combination of welding and panel bond adhesive to reassemble this cab. But essentially, we're going to use new techniques and old techniques and seal this guy up. Get rid of the rust. Okay, it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but I've drilled out the spot welds the best of my ability up here on the roof skin, and I want to try to separate it. Now, in the center of the roof here, it kind of separated itself over the years, so hopefully that's going to help me, but I've got a little hand chisel and a hammer. I'm just going to try to be delicate with this thing and try not to ruin it, because it's got to go back on. Might be able to get in here, because it's got a couple of that are already busted free. Aha. Oops. I'm going to have to hammer and dolly this whole edge. is that coming up now? The secret is to get it started. This is probably loud, sorry about that. The secret is to get it started and then work it. There we go. So this roof skin, like I said, popped free on its own in a couple spaces. I'll bring it around so you can see. Sorry, this is really loud. What I'm doing is, oops, getting in here, just lightly tapping. Between the skin where I drilled it, and it's popping up. Most places it's going to need to be hammered and dollied back to place. Now over in front of this guy, I can't get it very good, but there we go. This piece here is pretty solid, so hopefully that won't deflect, and then we'll just have to hammer and dolly the edge of the roof skin back together. Being very gentle. You can see the daylight coming as it slowly separates. It's kind of hard to reach though. Here, maybe we can do this. Right after careful hammering and prodding, you can see it kind of really wrecks the edge of this trying to get it across, trying to twist it and pop it. There's a bunch of marks, but there's also tons and tons of pinholes. But I believe I've got the skin loose now all the way down, and I did some relief cutting on this back panel to be able to get it free from there. But I'm a little nervous about this roof skin being junk. Like, it's got a bunch of thin spots around where the spot welds were, and it deformed it a little bit trying to get it off there. And I don't know, it's the attachment edges wasn't sandblasted obviously because it was spot welded together, and it seems like it's going to be kind of rough. So I don't know if I should buy a new panel, because in the long run it's going to go on way easier. But let's at least get it off and take a look. Hopefully I can do this without cutting the crap out of myself. We'll find out. It's the best way to do this. Oh boy. This might have been smarter to remove this before sandblasting, but I didn't know. Well, kind of know what I had to do. You can see the top is all smooth because it was media blasted. So here's the back cab seam, which, you know, I cut it so it could come apart first, but it's thin around the edges here. It's got some damage. I could straighten it out and grind all this and reattach it, but it's got a bunch of thin spots up here in the front, which they're going to be hard to fix. And man, the roof is a pretty integral part. Ooh, look at all the pinholes through there. You see the daylight through there? Tons of pinholes on the outside of the cab. So now we can see the inner structure, and obviously, I think I said in the last video, these trucks, they put them together completely in bare metal. and they never rust-proofed anything up here, so the roofs just rot right off these things. It's crazy when you get any kind of moisture or animals or anything like that. But you can see where they missed a bunch of spot welds here. It wasn't attached. So this thing probably leaked almost from day one around the windshield, I'm going to guess. But here now, this panel here, I have these pieces. I bought them. I believe they're Dynacorn makes them. I believe Dynacorn's the same one that makes the back cab. But I have these pieces here like this. Boom. So we can go ahead and remove the rusted out ones here. Now we got these. So you kind of got to grind it to fit up there, but I've got this new panel, so we're going to put brand new metal in up here above the door. I'll get rid of all that rust, the majority of it, and then it'll give us all brand new metal to tie into. But when I get the back panel off, I'm going to grind or wire wheel this inner panel and try to get it as clean as I can, and these inner structures here, kind of try to clean them up as best I can, and then put some like rust converter on them and paint them. Now, the best thing to do would be take it back to the sandblaster and have all this new metal, or have all this rusty metal blasted on the inside. But I just can't afford to do that. Like, I got so much money tied up in getting what was here sandblasted, and now I'm throwing half of it away. If I clean it up the best I can and paint it, it won't last forever and ever, but it'll probably last the life of the truck. So that's going to be good. I mean, it lasted 50 years in bare metal. 55 years in bare metal, whatever year it is. So once I get these panels replaced, this drip rail is full of pinholes all the way around. I might end up ordering one of these and replace this drip rail as well, because it's all going to be taken apart anyways, so might as well do that. But we're at least going to replace these pieces here. You know, all this structure up here, you can see the rust there. It's going to get worse before it gets better. We're going to have to keep cutting. I got that piece cut out here. I think I'm going to end up getting new drip rails as well, just because there's rust on the inside of this one. It's like surface rust, but the other one is all rusted through, and when I change the back of the cab, I'm going to be most of the way into it. I think I can get new drip rails, not for a lot of money, like 60 bucks or something for these trucks. So I'm going to do that. These pits here, I'm going to take my brushable seam sealer. I'm just going to coat this with seam sealer. Like I said, we're not going for perfection. We're going for good enough and making it better. It's going to be real hard to try to repair this here, and it's behind the windshield rubber anyway, so if I goop it all up on the back side, this gets taped and gets seam sealed here, this seam to seal that up, and it'll essentially seal it up, and then we'll prime it and paint it both sides, so it'll be okay. It's, you know, it's better than it was, which was bare metal, which rusted away. But I did replace this piece here. I made a piece out of some 18 gauge sheet metal, and that replaces, oh, I lost it. Where did it go? Dang it. Oh, here we go. That replaces the top of the A-pillar that was going to the seam here. It goes like that, and everything is rusted, severely pitted, pinholes and all that. So I ended up bending a little piece up here, and I'm about ready to weld that on, and then the other piece goes in behind it, the structural piece. The new part goes in behind that, but this is the front edge of that door seal, and I'm going to weld it up. Then I'll just have a couple of pinholes here that I'll probably, with the door seal, I'll probably just leave those. I'll probably try to dump some primer or spray some primer down the A-pillar here to try to coat the inside of the A-pillar with primer the best I can. And these are just going to be, you know, behind the door seal. They'll get sealed up with that, and I can put some seam sealer on them on the outside to kind of fill them up. It is what it is. You know, without replacing that whole A-pillar and everything else, which the one on the other truck's not really any better. You can buy that panel. It's $400 for the whole A-pillar. I'm not doing that. Like, we're just going to it's going to be close enough, good enough. These trucks are not perfect, and they weren't meant to last forever. And I can't spend 6 years rebuilding this thing. It's ridiculous. So anyways, here we go. So I'm going to plug weld this on here. I'm going to then take the body hammer, tap this over, weld this up, and then put the other piece on. I've got to grind off my other plug welds here, or the spot welds, clean this all up. I'll clean this up with the flap wheel, get some primer on there. This is the weld through primer like I sprayed down there. Prime all that up. We'll fit the piece and then weld that in, and that'll fix this side. Okay, I got the piece here fitted, ready to weld in. I had to trim it a little bit on this edge. It was a little large, but I've got it ready to go. Everything has been primed underneath it. And actually, I didn't show on camera, but I took some brushable seam sealer and I painted over all those pits with a heavy coat of seam sealer, so they are sealed up from the inside and they're primed. And after I weld this in, I'm going to use seam sealer around this edge here and down in here, so there will be less likely spots where moisture can lay, in there. So the drip rail is just going to kind of hang out here because I think I'm going to replace that, like I said, with a new one. So that would get welded onto this piece later on, but right now it's just going to hang out in space, but everything looks like it's lining up to where it needs to be. Nice and tight. I've drilled a bunch of plug welds. They're going to plug weld in here. These things are painted in weld through primer, and then I sprayed the weld through primer on the panels after I ground the rust off. I got some plug welds out here. You can see how that front piece came out and fits good to how it's supposed to be. This gap here on the edge, that's how it is on the factory on the other side, and then there's also a gap back here just like the factory. It's all clamped together. I'm going to do all my plug welding on the top side, so there's less finish work required, but it's fitted in there. Everything looks good. When you put the drip rail up there, you can see that it goes on where it's supposed to go. I'll just show you what it looks like on the other side. It's kind of hard to tell because it's so rusty, but there is a gap. See that big gap there on the front of that? And then there would have been a gap back here if this hadn't rusted away. So they didn't really fit them the best. They just kind of welded them in there and then steam sealed them. But it's, we're doing as best we can here. There's going to be some plug welds on the inside, and then the inner roof structure welds to this once that gets put back on. But this big hole here like that, that's just how it is on the other side. This piece fits pretty good after I did a little bit of fitting on it, so it should be ready to weld up on here. I'm just going to go ahead and plug it all the way and then prime it again, and then I'll seam seal it before I go in at the end of the night so that I can drive overnight. I welded up one of the pits here. I'm going to grind that down. I'm just going to seam seal the rest of them. All right, it's the next day, and I worked getting this guy all ground down in primer. I got a couple of pinholes in the spot welds here that or the plug welds, so I'll just use some little dab of filler, fill them in. They'll disappear when we paint it. I took the liberty of putting the inner roof structure in just temporarily to see how things are lining up, make sure the cab didn't get twisted weird or anything, and actually to see how this aftermarket panel would fit. It's not clamped in the back or nothing. I just clamped on the front, but this is a brand new panel. If you're doing one of these trucks, they all rot in the front of the roof here, and I'll show you why in a second. But they sell just the front half of the panel if your roof's not too bad, but I had rust, with these panels all the way around. So this panel is pretty expensive. It's like $400, usually from CJ Pony Parts, truck parts, or like AMD or stuff like that. And they're about $400. I bought this one on eBay, actually. I think somebody had bought it and as like a dealer deal, and I got it for $200 plus $200 shipping, which actually was $400 altogether, which was cheaper than buying it from the other places, but it seems to fit pretty good. And here's why these all rust out. In the front here, you got this big cavity, so obviously the upper roof skin goes over here. You got this huge cavity up here, and these roofs are all bare metal, so any moisture from just condensation or whatever would run off this. They had a piece of felt that they put in here to keep this from rattling. I'm going to use Kill Mat on it when I put it together, but the water would run down and just lay in here and sit. And this is spot welded, but you had the windshield gasket here on the outside, so any water that got in here would be trapped in here. and you could get mouse nests. They can get up through the back of the cab, work their way around through here, you know, mouse nests in here, anything, but just condensation and moisture laying in all this bare metal. These roofs are completely bare metal when they put them together. All rusted. These trucks are all rusted out up here. If you find one that's not, you got a good one, but they pretty much are all rusted out up here, and that's why. So when I put this in, I ordered some panel bond adhesive. I think I'm going to glue this inner structure in most of the way. It's got a nice back panel back here. I've got a tiny little shipping dent there I got to straighten out, but there's a couple of these holes, alignment holes I'll call them, that I'm going to put some 1/4-20 hardware in there and nylock nuts and bolt 3 bolts down, but we're going to panel bond adhesive this seam all the way around, and in the front I'm going to panel bond it, and then along the sides, I don't have it clamped, but it should clamp up real nice. I am also going to add a couple of spot welds. I think we're going to do a tool review in a couple of videos. I think I'm going to get one of them Tong spot welders from, I think Chicago Electric makes them. You get them at Harbor Freight or whatever. You can buy fancier ones, but I think I'm going to get one of those because I'm going to need it for the Dodge Daytona build. It's going to be happening next year. And what I can use to do it is I can glue most of this panel, but then in specific areas I can also use them clamps and spot weld, like to this brand new panel and to the roof panel. I could spot weld it, bang, bang, bang. Do that. I could put a couple of spot welds in the front just to make sure that the panel bond adhesive, I mean, it's structural, it's 3M. Actually, I've got it right here. Where is it? This stuff here I used to glue the roof skin on my Dodge truck project, and it's been fine. This stuff's, here we go, work time 90 minutes, clamp time 4 hours, cure time. This is panel bond adhesive for literally gluing car panels together. Like a lot of new cars have panels glued on them, so I think that's a good application, is to glue this piece in and then use a couple of strategic spot welds. Like I'll probably hit a couple welds here, and maybe hit a couple in the center, and then a couple over here just to hold it, you know, both glue and weld. But you can see what it looks like up there. Like I said, I'll put Kilmat on it so we have the anti-acoustic action working, but it fits good. Everything seems to fit nice. The way this side comes in, it's going to clamp together really well through here. So I just wanted to check that before we get too carried away. But I am working on this other side. I've got the old panel cut out, and I'm just fitting a new one in. I'm about ready to drill the holes for the plug welds. I took the drip rail loose, which this one is full of pinholes all the way down, so I'm going to get a new drip rail. Actually, I'm probably going to get a set of drip rails and just replace the drip rails on both sides, because the other one's probably not long for this world. If this one is this spot, well, it was this pitted. The other one, when I took it apart, was pitted as well. So I'll put new drip rails on. Might as well make it all nice. As soon as that's done, I'll probably end up finishing the video here, but I am going to start working on putting this bracket on. This is for the support for the steering column and the master cylinder, and I bought it from, it's a Tri-Plus panel. I bought it from online. I forget exactly where I got it from. I think Classic Industries. Yeah, I got it from Classic Industries. And same thing, this panel was bare metal on the inside, the original one, and water had got in it, and it's kind of sealed up at the bottom. It was all rusted out here. Actually had a big hole in the floor that I had to weld up here, all rusted out. But this is a structural panel you need, so when you hit the brakes, it doesn't bend the firewall. So there's a ton of plug welds on the front. These are all drilled out here, and I've got to take it off and grind down to bare metal so I can weld it all up. I sprayed weld-through primer on the back side of this panel, so it'll have, you know, protection between the two panels. I'll weld all that up, then I can grind my weld up. I did this when it was on the truck frame, and I had a hard time getting in here. I got a couple of pin welds. I'm just going to, or pinholes, I'm just going to tap these in, use a little bit of Duraglass filler on those, so it should be fine, and grind this down, use a little Duraglass filler on there. I got a pinhole here. Weld that up, clean that up, smooth that up, do all these plug welds, grind all them smooth. A little bit of body work on the firewall, but you can see all the dimples. That's all the spot welds from putting the thing together, so it probably won't do too much body work. It's going to be what it is. But I was talking earlier about short strand fiberglass body filler, which is waterproof. You got this USC Duraglass. This is strong, right here, strong waterproof fiberglass. It's short strand, and I like to put it on top of epoxy primer. There's two different schools of thought. Some people put body filler on top of bare metal, and they do like a mechanical adhesion where they rough it up with like 80 grit and then mechanically put it on, by mechanic, I mean the filler grabs into the metal that you roughed up with a grinder. I like to put it on top of epoxy primer, especially something like this where it's been sandblasted. I'll epoxy primer the entire truck cab first, and then the epoxy primer chemically bonds with the metal and physically grabs onto it, especially with the sandblasted surface. And then when you do your filler work, if you scuff up the epoxy primer with 80 grit sandpaper to take the shine off it and put the filler on top of the epoxy primer, it chemically bonds the epoxy primer, so you have no way for moisture to get between the filler and the metal and to rust later. I did my Studebaker truck that way back in 1993, so like 31 years ago. I don't have any rust issues with that. Not that it's driven in the salt or anything, but something like this that's had some rust issues, like here, like the pitting, we'll get epoxy primer in the pits first, then put the filler on top of that. It's just one little extra step to help it get just a little bit better adhesion and hang on just a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up for this video here. I got the this side of the structure replaced in the roof here, all plug welded in. I just got to grind it down and primed it. I did end up taking the drip rails off too, and you can see all the rust that was behind them. They were spot weld. I just kind of worked them and snapped them off. This one was full of pinholes from the rust, and I'm going to grind and wire wheel and rust convert this the best I can here. I wish I had taken these off and cut the roof off before I had it sandblasted. Obviously that would have been better, but I didn't, and it is what it is. It's going to be better than nothing. So I'll get new drip rails on here along with a new roof skin and a new back skin. But we'll finish up over here. I welded on the steering brake bracket here. About a whole crap ton of plug welds. And that's nice and sturdy here. I'm going to go ahead and grind the front of it down. Oh, did I miss a spot? Ah, crap. Anyways, I'll grind it down, and that's real stiff now. I'll grind it down. I'll do a little bit of filler work on there, but not too much because you can see all the other plug or spot welds and stuff like that. But good progress in this video. Did a lot of the, yeah, I can see this side. Hold on, I'm getting distracted. I got this side off too. And like I said, I'll put new gutters on it. So good progress in this video. That was a big deal to get this all fixed up here. That was a lot of rot that was in the roof there. So that's all good to go. And I'll work on when finances recover after the back panel, which was $715. So I'm going to save up and buy the roof skin. I can put that on last. So I'll put the inner roof on after I get this going. I ordered some more of that 3M panel bond adhesive. I want to get the inner structure in, get that all situated, get everything up. I want to get my inner rockers put in here with the floor pans. Then I'm going to epoxy primer all this before it starts to rust just from moisture. And I want to fix this probably off camera just a little bit there. But I want to get the thing all blown up in primer. And then I'll probably, yeah, see like here I've touched it and it's starting to rust where I've touched it in my hands a couple times leaning on it. So I want to get that all done, get it in epoxy primer. But I guess that's it for now. I'm going to just grind all this up and get away. Got to go back to work tomorrow and let this sit and work on it some more. And eventually here, maybe in like another week or two, we'll get her mounted back up on the frame, and then we can really start to work on getting the truck assembled with the other truck and parts from a third truck all together. I got like fenders over here. One's new old stock, one's used. I got a different hood. I got GMC hood. I got the box off an 85 truck. So it's going to be a whole conglomeration, but eventually it's going to look like a Hawaiian Blue C10 step side. Just like my dad had back in the 80s. It just took a long way to get there. When he did his truck, it was only 8 years old, so it wasn't junk like this, which is 50 years old. So, or more than 50 years old. So that's it. Thanks for watching. These projects spiral out of control. You never know what you're going to get. Where's Forrest Gump and his chocolate? We'll see you next time. Finally starting to put something back together here in the C10 at the Quick Speed Shop.